So won't be able to join because he has some technical issues at his end.
Sure.
So we are live now. So let's start. Uh, Hello everyone. My name is Nikhil. I'm a CFA charter holder and one of the professors at GCEC. And today we have two guests with us, Abhinav and Amit. Today we shall be talking about courses and careers in finance, and how you can navigate this career, how you can make a career in finance, what are things that are do's and don'ts, and what careers can you aspire for in finance is what we shall be talking about. So first, I would like to introduce Abhinav. So Mr. Abhinav Natani is himself a CFA charter holder. He is currently working as an investment professional at Oiko Credit. He completely focuses on private equity investments with major focus towards social impact investing. And the another guest which I have is Mr. Amit Chakravarti. So Amit Chakravarti won't be able to join because he has Amit Chakravarti leads the Amit Chakravarti leads the uh, Amit Chakravarti leads the he's the director of global partnership and client solutions at CFA Institute. He has a very rich experience of investment banking at HSBC. So happy to have you both. And yeah, please. Thank you. Hi, Abhinav. Hi, Amit. Okay. So my first question will be towards, Abhinav. Abhinav, can you just take us through, what are you currently working upon? What is your everyday like being an investment professional? And how did you land up in this career?
Of course, no, thank you, Nikhil, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Abhinav Natani. So I'm currently working for an impact investment firm called Oiko Credit. It's a private equity fund investing into very social impact enterprises in financial inclusion and agriculture sector. So, just typically going over my day-to-day role and what I do in a private equity fund, what a job in a private equity fund looks like. It's first to start with, it's very interesting. The entire job entails that you start finding out relevant companies that you can invest in from your fund according to your mandate. So, for example, in Oiko Credit, my mandate involves looking and building a pipeline of companies in financial inclusion and agriculture sector. Now, these could be fintechs, MSME finance, housing finance, all the companies which your the mandate of your fund tells you to do. And then after building a pipeline of the companies, you start to figuring out that what companies would suit best into your mandate. And then you very screen out those 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 10 companies which you want to go further and take due to the due diligence stage. And that's where you start engaging with the management of the companies, the promoters, the middle management, the stakeholders to find out that how the company is performing, how the future prospects of the company is going to look like, and how, if you invest in the company, would you be able to make a decent return for yourself, for your fund, and for your investors to which have invested in your fund. So after all those analysis that you carried out and you engage in due diligence with the company, you start again screening out that what could be those 2 or 3 red flags for which you won't be able to get a minimum possible return which you have again promised to your investors. So after the entire due diligence you have carried out, that's after that is the main ball game which starts. That is presenting to your investment committee or selling to your investment committee. That is convincing your investment committee that why you as a fund should invest in that particular company, and that particular company would be able to maybe give you a multi-bagger return or a stable return, whatever your portfolio perspective be. And that's after you receive the investment approval from your committee. You go on deciding on the legal terms and rights of the shareholders. So that's called the legal closing stages. So if I just have to break my role or a typical portfolio manager or typical equity analyst role who is working in a private equity fund, it would first start with building a pipeline of the companies. Then you screen out the best possible companies. Then you engage in due diligence of those companies, write an investment proposal, get approval from the investment committee, and then close out the deal. And then, of course, there's a portfolio management of 8-10 years, the investment horizon within which you remain invested. And then, of course, either you sell out to a third party or through an IPO. So
That,
that's like a typical private equity fund journey looks like.
and what is the duration for this entire process that you go through? Like, how much time does it take, right from screening to figuring out, pitching to investors, and then finally fancy?
So yeah, in my particular case, Oiko Credit, it's a like very different fund. It is kind of considered as a development financial institution. So this investment horizon is a bit too stretched. It takes around 6 to 8 months. But there are a lot of venture capital funds, private equity funds in India, which are very like around 8-10 people team, very quick on feet, nimble ones. And like I have seen them closing around 30-40 deals during the year also, like within a 15 to 30 days time. It's just like that quick decisions they have to take. So it depends. Yeah.
And in one go, how much money do you generally prefer to invest in one company?
Yeah, so in Oiko Credit's case, it's around 16 crores to 160 crore.
Okay.
But yeah, like our typical investment size has been around 50 to 60 crores in one go. And then like, so the journey of investing doesn't end if just after you write a check. It's a very 8 to 10 year journey that you have to carry on with the investee. So there would be ups and downs of the company. Like you might have to support the company during the downs, invest more money if you have confidence in the business model.
Yeah.
So as a private equity fund or any venture capital fund for that, say most of them keep some dry powder also to support their investees in follow-on rounds or when the times are not correct, just to support them in low tides.
That's awesome. Like that's a very exciting job. So I have with me Mr. Amit, and Amit had a very interesting career. So I was going through his LinkedIn profile and saw that he worked at HSBC as an investment banker, and the last position that he held at HSBC was director of investment banking. And then he transitioned from that role to director of global partnership and client solutions. So Amit, can you please take us through your career journey? How did you work in finance from investment banking to totally a different role? And what has been the difficulties and the challenges which you faced in your career?
Sure. Thanks, Nikhil. First of all, good morning, Nikhil, Avinav, and everyone who's dialed in on LinkedIn. So I hope we can add some value to your life on a Sunday. Nikhil, my career, right? So it's been a journey of following my heart. Like most Indians, I did my engineering, worked in a software company, which was Deutsche Software, wholly owned subsidiary of Deutsche Bank. Moved to Singapore, lived there for 5 years. Again, mostly working as a software guy. But my day-to-day life, involved meeting bankers, frontline bankers, not just in Singapore, but across the Asia Pacific region, because Singapore is the Asia Pacific headquarters for Deutsche Bank, right? So I got a little bit more ambitious and said, hey, why can't I be a frontline banker? And that's when I took the decision to do an MBA. So I went to the US, did my MBA from Darden Business School, University of Virginia, and then moved to investment banking. So mostly doing origination and execution of M&A, mergers and acquisitions deals and equity capital market deals, right? So started my investment banking career in New York with HSBC, moved them to London, was in London for about 3.5 years, got married. My wife didn't like London at all, so which is why we decided to move back to Mumbai, right, with HSBC. So at HSBC, I was a lead banker for a bunch of sectors: power, infrastructure, transport, services, etc. So again, servicing Indian clients as well as global clients, which have a big business in India, right? Mostly around M&A and equity capital markets, right? So as director, things were going well. I thought, I wanted something new in my career at that point of time, and CFA Institute was just opening up its office in Mumbai. So I was one of the first 2 people who set up the office in India, and got it going. So now we are a much bigger team, and CFA Institute has established itself over the last 8 to 9 years, right? The motivation was from software to investment banking was obviously just ambition, like, to do more and do, Avinav spoke about private equity deals. So investment banking deals, private equity deals are all high profile. It's cool to be involved. It's fun when it closes. It's very frustrating when it doesn't close for a long time. Avinav talked about a few months, cycle. I've worked on deals which have gone on for like 3-4 years, right? And still not closed. Okay. So that was the motivation. From investment banking to non-profit at CF Institute, it's more about doing good for the society, doing good for the industry. How can I help the Indian investment management industry grow bigger and better while also keeping in mind investor interests, right? I think I just wanted to highlight one thing. So I mentioned working in investment banking in New York, London, and Mumbai, right? In New York, I had colleagues who were from Harvard, Wharton, Stanford, etc., etc. In London, London Business School, NCR, etc. In India, Mumbai, it was ISB, IIM Ahmedabad, etc. But one common thing I saw was the number of people or colleagues that I had who had gone through the CFA program journey, right? That was one very common factor in all of these different places I looked at. Okay. So that's my journey, Nikhil. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, perfectly answered, in fact. So, my question is, in fact, to both of you. You also started, your journey in finance through, you went through certain levels, you went through certain papers. So if, let's say, Abhinav or Amit, you are starting your journey now. So what do you think you shall do, which perhaps, shall help you more in your career? Because most of the audience that are watching us are, college students who are trying to, get into this career of finance. They're still confused. So what do you think that if, let's say, you have to restart your career, and how would you like to progress your career from now on? Let's say I'm a first year student, I'm just starting out. So what do you think should I do to make a career in, let's say, private equity fund, or make a career in investment banking firm? So what I should do to help my career become better, and I can have, a career like yours in that case. So open to both of you. Maybe Abhinav, you can start, and then we can come to Amit.
Of course. So maybe what I can do here, Nikhil, is just I share my journey, what I did as a first year, and I wanted to, like any other finance professional, just wanted to enter either a private equity or investment banking space. That's the front end, what you say. And at that time, I thought that I started going on LinkedIn's and these Naukri and IM jobs of the world, and started seeing out that what are the requirements of these VCs, PE firms. And a lot of across those were maybe very strong communication skills, Excel skills, and on a lot of job opportunities, I started seeing that CFA was also required.
Yeah.
Now it was either CA, CFA, or an MBA in finance degree. Now I was already, when I started doing my CFA, I was already in MBA finance. But then I went through the course of the CFA, I found that it was so comprehensive that even my MBA finance degree was not covering a lot of topics which is being covered in the CFA curriculum.
Yeah.
And that's where I made up a mind that if there's a somewhere I have to find an entry spot into this PE, VC, or investment banking space, I have to at least have to gain the knowledge of every asset class, because I don't know which sector, which asset class I might have end I might end my career in. So that's why that was my main motivation of giving the CFA curriculum. It is a very comprehensive finance course which I found at that point of time. So that was my motivation. Yeah.
And just, you mentioned about certain Excel courses. So, what are the kind of courses that students can do in their college, which can perhaps help them in their professional career as well? So,
Of course.
guide us on that also.
Sure. So again, only from the PEVC and investment banking mindset, I said that Excel is one thing, and then financial modeling is another. It's like getting your Excel formulas and all your skills to present your models, or whatever you are making a pitch decks or models or any formulas, in a way that is very understandable, that is very flexible, and to whomever you are providing that information to. So that's where I started taking those financial modeling courses, and it like at least not in the private equity or VC space, but I found that in the investment banking space, it's very useful.
Yeah.
If for like any partner for investment banker might be raising capital for, they require those financial models to be built in and provided to the relevant investors. So it won't be the most required skill, I would say, but it is a very necessary skill to, just like to quickly grab on to what's going on
Correct, makes sense.
in that industry. So
I
that's
think
why, yeah.
Amit must be reminiscing about his, old investment banking days, perhaps.
Yeah.
So yeah, so same question, goes to
Yeah.
you, Amit, also, that if you can, guide the students, what they should do in their career.
So, Nikhil, that's a very interesting question. I feel very strongly about it. I do talk to and to young people who are in the college, doing the undergrad or postgraduate on a very regular basis. I'm a mentor to more than 150 young women who are starting out a career in the industry and all. So this is a topic that's very close to my heart. I think the most important aspect is to try to figure out what's makes you happy. What's a job, what's a role that you think at that point of time, it might change, would make me happy, would drive me to wake up in the morning, go to work, go to office, right? And this the research and evaluation of this can start from first year of undergrad college itself, right? I mean, now we have LinkedIn, okay, which is a massive professional network. You have your college classmates, you have professors, you have your placement cells, you have your alumni, etc. I think the best thing one can do is reach out to as many people as possible, as early as possible in their career, and right, just to not to look for a job, because as soon as you start saying, hey, Nikhil, can you help me find a job? Nikhil would get defensive, right? It's more about connecting with Nikhil. Networking is not about asking someone's help. Networking is how can I help you? So if I reach out to Nikhil, it's about how can I help Nikhil rather than how can Nikhil help me, right? And that can only happen when you reach out early. You start connecting on topics that are of mutual interest. And it need not be about finance. It need not be about jobs. It could be about football. It could be about movies, traveling, doesn't matter, right? And you reach out to 10 people, more often than not, at least with 3 or 4 people, you'll have a very strong connection, right? And you start building that from your first year of college. Next thing you do is do internships. So rather than going on vacations after every year, do some internship or the other. Doesn't matter. It could be a marketing internship, operations internship, finance internship, doesn't matter, right? Because that gives you a more practical aspect of what this job would entail to be. And then the person can make a more informed choice on, do I really like this job? Do I really like this industry or not, right? So that would be the next step, okay? The third step would be to then acquire the skills that are required for the jobs that you think you like. Okay, so whether it's investment banking, private equity, research analyst, marketing operations, doesn't matter. Okay, so what are the skills, right? And once you've identified that skills, then the next step would be to identify relevant qualifications that can help you enhance your profile. So while you're doing your undergrad degree or MBA, etc., what else can I do, right? Because eventually you're competing against your classmates as well, right? Mm-hmm. For example, when I went to some of the top IIMs, I still saw that they were doing FRM, CFA, Kaya, etc., because they need to compete against their classmates as well, right? Mm-hmm. So step 1, network, do your research, figure out. Step 2, identify the skills that you're required to do well in the job you want. Oh, sorry. Step 2 is internships. Third thing is identify the skills that you want to build a career in. Then the next step is to identify qualifications, right? And if somebody is really interested in making a career in investment management industry, whether it's asset management industry, wealth management industry, private equity, private credit, alternatives, etc., CFA is the most in-depth program around anywhere in the world, right? And once you've done all of these things, then looking for a job becomes so much easier, right? You're almost wanted by the industry rather than you kind of being desperate for a career. Right. I hope that makes sense, Nikhil.
That perfectly makes sense. In fact, you answered really well. My next question comes to both of you, since you both have a very interesting profile. And this is one confusion which I have generally seen with all the students, that especially who are, doing undergraduate in finance, that they're confused with the option of MBA in finance or whether they should go for CFA And then there are always these two minds operating, and they often get confused. Where should I take my career ahead from this? Whether I should spend my time on, writing for CAD, sitting for CAD, or whether I can spend that time in doing a professional course, whether it's CFA, whether it's FRM, whether it's ACCA, any sort of professional course. So, maybe Abhinav and Amit, you can guide students and tell us that what actually contributed more to your career in knowledge terms and in, experience terms. And if you have to tell someone, or if you have to guide someone, what path will you tell them to pick, which can help them progress their career? So Abhinav, we can start with you, and then we'll come to Amit again on this.
Tricky question, Nikhil, I would say. And this is like, it's my personal opinion, per se. See, what I realized that how MBA colleges are operating in India is it's more placement based.
Right.
And what attracts students to an MBA college is what higher placement an MBA college would be able to give, or higher RO, return on investment, an MBA college would be able to give them. Unlike in US, where you complete an MBA, and you maybe, if you are doing a finance course, you would go to Stanford, or maybe if you're doing a law, you would go to Harvard, and people choose that's the best, which one is the best college in that particular course, and then people look out for jobs themselves. Now, if only from the job perspective, everyone is looking to enter in a private equity space, or any like finance profile, I would say go for a MBA in finance, at least from the top 10 institutes, because that's where the front end role gets offered and ends up with
Right. Correct.
right now. But again, coming to what also the point Amit highlighted is that where you get placed, or where you stand in your batch. Now that's the advantages factor which CFA and FRM or any other finance professional certification can give you over rest of your batch, or rest of the ND candidate you are competing across colleges or across India.
Right.
So I would say, yeah, in India, from the job perspective, it's a hard reality. But yeah, you have to get into a MB finance if you have to have an accelerated career in finance. Through CFA, if you just want to have a professional certification, a CFA or FRM would land you into a private equity or VC job, not in the top of funds. I would say mid market size private equity or investment banking firm, and you can start at an entry level job and then go through the ranks. That's what I've observed. But both would give you a finance exposure. I'm just saying an accelerated path. Accelerated path would be through MBA and MBA. I've observed.
What is your opinion on this, Amit?
Yeah, sure. Again, this keeps coming up, okay, very often, which is why you're asking the question probably. I look at MBA and CFA as complementary rather than competing, right? And I think that ties in with what Abhinav is saying as well. Okay, so when somebody is doing the undergrad and they're very clear that finance or investment industry is what they want to do, even during the undergrad studies, then my suggestion is before doing an MBA, maybe walk in the industry for a couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years, and then go for an MBA, right? And Abhinav mentioned the US-based schools and all. So typically in the US, people have at least 3 to 4 years of work experience before they apply. No one can get into a Harvard, Wharton, Stanford, or any NY Stern, Darden, etc., without some relevant experience, right? Some experience, not relevant, some experience, right? It's slightly different in India with IM, ABCL, with the CAT program and all, where even freshers get in, but even that is changing now. Even the top IMs also give some weightage to work experience, is what I understand, right? So coming back, if somebody is very clear that finance is what I want to do during the undergrad stage itself, to enhance your your profile, maybe sign up for CFA at that point of time, and then look for a job. And then after working for 2, 3 years, go for an MBA at a top tier school. And that top tier is key. Okay, guys, placement out of B school is very, very important, right? If somebody is not very clear, okay, and they have done their undergrad, not sure what they want to do, MBA, whether you want to work or you go directly for an MBA, it's a choice that an individual has to make. But once you make it to an MBA, right, then look at CFA. If you're at that point thinking that, finance is what I want to do, because then it helps you not just compete in the market, but competing within your classmates as well, right?
Right.
So the skill set is very different in an MBA and CFA. Okay, so the MBA is more generic, so you You learn marketing, you learn entrepreneurships, operations, finance and accounting, etc., etc. Right? CFA is very focused. It's deep dive into investment industry, right? So if I look at, I mean, people keep talking about T-shaped skills, like, so it's literally a T. So the horizontal line in the T is what an MBA provides you. The vertical line in the T is what a CFA provides you, which is deep dive knowledge, right? Very complementary in my view. Okay, so don't look at it as so that you're an MBA or a CFA. It's more about what do I want to, where do I see myself working, and then figure out the path, and that can be complementing each other.
That makes sense, actually. In fact, in our college also, I always advise students that at least now CFLL 1 and 2 are happening within, college. So you can appear for CFLL 1 when you're in second year and CFL level 2 when you're in third year. So at least cover those levels so that you learn and know something about finance and whether actually finance is there for you. You want to do something in that. And perhaps then, perhaps if you want to then go for an MBA if you wish to, or work somewhere at a good firm, because covering and giving CFLL 1 and 2 shall itself help you land up a at least entry-level job. And then you can figure out, how to navigate your career further from there on. But I always find this, concept of doing a graduation and sitting for CAT and then going for MBA very it never made sense to me because you don't have any work exposure per se. And it's a bit difficult, I feel, to get a good college in that. So I think I am now also focusing on work experience, as you mentioned, Amit. Yeah, please.
I just wanted to reiterate one point, okay, which is expectation setting, right? And knowing what you're signing up for, right? So when you are signing up for any course, okay, whether it's an undergrad course, MBA course, CFA, CAIAS, FRM, etc., it's very important to figure out what exactly does it mean? What kind of roles will I get? So if I'm doing an undergrad degree and I'm doing CFA level 1 or level 2, knowing what jobs I'll get or not get, okay, equally important, right? Otherwise, what happens, a lot of people sign up because of herd mentality, I want to do CA, CFA, blah, 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 right? But I really don't know what this will lead on to, right? I mean, if somebody says, I'm studying an undergrad and I'm doing CFA level 1, I want to work for KKR or Carlyle or Blackstone, some of the, prime private equity spaces, right? Not going to happen, very, very unlikely, okay? So that expectation setting is very important upfront. And to your point, it's kind of a journey. Your end goal might be work in Carlyle or at Goldman Sachs, but how do you get there? Sometimes it takes 2 steps, sometimes it takes 5 steps, sometimes it takes 10 steps, right? And again, reiterating that private equity investment banking is not everyone's cup of tea, okay? It's not, I mean, again, a lot of us okay, what's the most high profile job, which pays the highest, and just go for it, right? But if you're not interested, you're not equipped for those jobs, then you'll not do well, right? And you'll be unhappy, okay? So there's so many other different jobs within even the investment banking and the private equity and the investment management industry. It's very important to figure out where do you see yourself, where does your interest lies or aligns, right? And go for that job. It might not be the most high profile, but trust me, that's where you'll do well. And you can become the CEO of the company by doing that.
Right. That makes sense. I think that's a very good point that you mentioned, that expectation alignment and goal alignment is very important before going for anything in your career. Otherwise, you'll always feel unhappy at the end of the day. So that truly makes sense. So we in the last 20-30 minutes, we primarily focus more towards IB and private equity and portfolio management space. I just want to know from your side what other career domains that you're seeing which are emerging in the world of finance, and which maybe students can also look into, given that so many transformations are happening around us in terms of AI, blockchain, and all these things. So what are the new career opportunities that you're seeing that as students of finance, they should keep an eye upon and, perhaps make some progress towards those domains as well, apart from the traditional domains which have always existed in the industry? So Abhinav, maybe you can start with this.
Of course, Nikhil. So in the finance space, of course, what trends I've seen is I'll start with the already existing profile. So in case of the investment banking, I've seen that the need for investment bankers maybe in the Series A, P-Series A, or even to the Series B rounds, it's quite diminishing now, because companies are starting building internal expertise of the investor relations. And investor relations department is quite strong within them, that they are now not going for investment bankers just to save on their 2 to 3 commission percentage commission cut, which they provide to the investment bankers. And investment bankers are now more being restricted to mature stages, Series C, Series D. So I've seen a lot of companies strengthening their investor relations segment right now. So that's one trend I've seen. Second, of course, in the private equity space, it's growing. There has been a lot of opening of small size venture capital funds around 50, 100 crores. Then there are a lot of family offices coming up. This space compared to 10 years ago, there were only around 10, 15, maybe lesser funds in India. Now there's a huge, like recently, I think folks are in 42 or a global financial fest happened in which I think it was the NPCI which released a list of 100 most active VCs. Like we are talking in the 100 most active. I don't know what would be the total number which we are talking about.
Right.
So it's a very booming space, I would say. Third trend is what I've seen is a lot of fintechs have starting coming up. They're I think I don't know the exact amount, but I think India ranked in top 5 in terms of attracting the fintech funding in 2022 and in 2023, which like the first half. So that's where the sector is booming because we are being supported by a huge population and the consumption patterns of the huge population. So everyone in the industry is very dominant on the fintech industry. Now under the fintechs, you need people in finance for underwriting a lot. And maybe if you have some of those science capabilities, a lot of demand has been on the data science and data engineering teams. If those are being complemented by your finance skills, that's a huge. I'm seeing very good employment demand coming from. So that's
plus
what.
finance is something which can be the next big thing.
Yeah. So finance is, I think, your some capabilities on the tech side along with finance that is going to be need of the hour going forward. I myself have started taking courses on blockchain, on Web3, on decentralized finance, because that's where now that those are the technologies which is now getting deployed in every aspect of financial operations. And
Right.
that's where, as investors, we also have to understand that how we can ask the right questions to the management in like in the team in which we are going to invest.
I'll
So,
come to blockchain again because I want to ask specifically on this,
of
what
course,
exactly is happening on blockchain. So I'll just park this for now
yeah,
because I actually want to ask on blockchain specifically and AI and blockchain specifically in finance. Okay. So, the same question goes to you, Amit, that, what are the kind of trends that you're seeing in finance right now and which perhaps students can focus upon, and, you can give your opinion on that.
Sure. So, thanks, Nikhil. So I do a lot of info sessions at colleges and all. And what I normally do is I start with a slide on the different aspect of the investment industry. So so finance and investment industry are slightly different. So when you say finance, you're looking at also the banks and stuff like that. So I'm not covering those part. I'm more focusing on the investment part of it.
Okay.
So when you talk about investment industry, the various components of it, from an India perspective, one is the asset management industry, the usual mutual funds that we talk about, right? So the HDFC AMCs, ICICI Prudential AMCs, etc. There are not a lot, there are about 45 players in India, most of the domestic, so most of the global firms have exited. So the only ones are HSBC, Franklin, and Invesco, right? I think there are different kind of roles within that. So the most high profile roles that people come across is fund managers, analysts, but then there are amazing roles in product development. There are very, very good roles in sales part of it. Sales are the most high paying jobs. If somebody loves sales, it's nothing like that, but a salesperson with the proper technical skill set as well, so that they come across as credible and all, right? So that's the asset management industry, 45 odd players, limited number of jobs, even if the AUM growing and all. The second aspect is wealth management industry. Now, this is a significantly fast growing segment of the industry in India in particular, especially with the upcoming middle class, high net worth individuals, ultra high net worth individuals, etc. Right? And this is going to be a huge job creator now as well as in the near future, right? So massive number of firms in the domestic sector, global sector, lots of entrepreneurship opportunities here as well, right? So huge opportunity. The third one is alternatives, where Avinav works on private equity, venture capitals, hedge funds, real estate, commodities, etc., right? So this is again a strong area of growth for India, and there's a lot of opportunities, right? The next one is very interesting. It's I call it the global investment hub. Now, if you look at all of the large investment management firms in the world, whether it's BlackRock, State Street Global Advisors, Northern Trust, etc., the largest or the second largest employee base of anywhere in the world is based in India, right? And this started out as a back office function of all of these firms 25, 30 years back, call centers, etc. But now it's evolved so much that almost every job, almost every frontline job can be based out of India, and are going to be based out of India, right? So if I look at a SocGen, some of the lead analysts who cover companies in Europe are based out of India. They travel to Europe if required to meet company management, come back and write as a lead analyst, right? So barring sales jobs, everything can be based out of India, and that's a huge opportunity, right? These are very marquee names, nice career paths, good salaries. The work environment is very nice as well, right? So huge opportunity of it, right? So these are the broad industry segment, okay? Now, if I look at themes within all of these industries, and Avinav mentioned about tech, right? Now, if I hear Larry Fink, who is one of the founders of BlackRock and is the current CEO, he says that in the near future, okay, not long time in the future, but near future, I don't think anyone can work in BlackRock who doesn't have finance and technology knowledge, right? So both fintech are equally important, and that is necessary, okay? So that's a very up and coming theme, and it's already being adopted by many, many large firms, and a huge area to focus in, right? And the CFA program also focuses on that, right? Now, Python, for example, is part of CFA level 1 as a practical skill modules, right? We are also coming out with different programming, different professional learning programs around machine learning, finance, fintech, etc., right? So that's one thing. Second thing is ESG, environment, social governance, right? Again, it's a significantly growing theme in the entire world. India is slightly behind, but again, it's picking up. SEBI has come out with lots of regulations around ESG. BRSR is required, mandated for the 1,000 listed companies, etc. We at CFA Institute did a survey. It's slightly dated about 1.5 years back. So we looked at 1 million profiles on LinkedIn of people's profile on LinkedIn, and we look at the number of jobs posted on LinkedIn, right? And we found a 10x gap, supply demand gap. So for example, if there are 10 jobs looking at for some ESG skills, we found one profile for those 10 jobs, okay, who had some ESG skills, right? So 1:10 gap, right? My boss who lives out of London, Paul Moody, he says that he used to work for Barclays Investor Services, and he says that now that someone who could just do a PowerPoint presentation with some ESG thematics, he would get a job in ESG just because this is that, right? So that's how relevant his team is, okay? So I think data science and ESG are two up-and-coming teams, current up-and-coming teams, which are very, very going to be in demand and required for the industry. And this will go through the spectrum of all of the industries we spoke about, whether it's asset management, wealth management, alternatives, global investment hub, etc., etc.
And in fact, I think this is one of the reasons that Safe Institute program has started also focusing a lot on, these skills, and specifically ESG investing also, because I see the topic of ESG becoming bigger and broader and more in-depth in the program as well.
If I may spend 1 minute, Nikhil,
Yeah.
the CFA program is a very practitioner-driven curriculum, okay? So what it means is there's a very elaborate process. I don't want to bore the audience with the whole process, but in short, we engage with the industry, practitioners throughout the year. Okay, so what is happening? What's relevant? What's pertinent? What kind of skills are being required and all, right? And all of this is collated and through discussions across the world, including in India with the Indian industry. And then there's a curriculum development team which tries to say that how can I incorporate this into the CFA program, right? So every year, 5 to 10% of the program gets changed. There have been some significant changes which have been launched in recent times, but typically it's 5 to 10%. And we try to bring in that new concepts, new requirements from the industry into the curriculum, okay? So that way we kind of make sure that the curriculum is kept constantly updated through a practitioner-driven demand requirement, etc. as well.
That's great. That's great. I'll dial back to one of the things that we parked, when Abhinav was talking, that was about, blockchain and AI. So we keep hearing this, things in news, in some articles. And Abhinav, can you take us through how much blockchain and AI are becoming a part of startup ecosystem and business ecosystem in India? And, what kind of growth trajectory this particular domain can have and the impact it can have in finance industry per se?
It's there are two school of thoughts to this, Nikhil, and I don't have right now the exact numbers how this industry is going to grow, or right now what's the current penetration looking like. But what I've started observing some trends is the applicability of blockchain and AI in all the tech operations. So I would say that 65 to 70% of our India's population are living right now in villages. Now, the cost of serviceability and delivery of any product or service for maybe a financial service is very high in rural villages, and that's where the technology has to play the role in driving down that cost. Now, all those technology which helps us to drive down that cost is what is going to be the next future in fintechs, and that's where all these technologies like AI, ML, data science, and blockchain is starting to come up. I've seen startups which were giving end-to-end user traceability through blockchain networks, and that startup that feature was one of the very most unique of that startup, and that got itself the I would say the differentiating factor for the funding, just because it was the end user traceability of that particular feature through blockchain that was very unique to that startup. And that's where now in India, the blockchain and AI are still in, I would say, not very advanced, but yeah, growing in nascent stages and just startup. But following the global trends, I would say that yeah, it has got that huge potential going forward. I'm sorry, it's just like a very vague answer I'm giving, but that's what right now I can answer on this topic. But for sure, I'm seeing a lot of trends forming up right now.
And Amit, what do you think on that? Like, do you see blockchain and AI disrupting the industry, and whether this is something that, if someone is a student of finance, should keep in mind and perhaps prepare himself for the disruption which is there and accordingly plan his career?
Yeah, okay. So I'm not a blockchain expert, okay, and that's the first statement I'll make, and it's a topic that I still don't fully comprehend, right?
Yeah.
But you mentioned blockchain and AI, okay. So for me, like those are two very different things, right? So I look at data science and AI as one topic, okay. And then blockchain, crypto, etc., is one very different topic. I mean, obviously, some of the skill sets are transferable and all, but they are very different, right? I think, like from a data science and AI, these are themes, as I highlighted before, that are critically important, today and going to be critically important in the near future. And everybody should be looking at those topics, right? Those subjects, okay, to acquire some of the skill sets, right? Otherwise, one will come across as a dinosaur in the industry, right?
Correct.
Excel, for example, like the much loved Excel, might even go away completely because you're going to use more Python and machine learning and AI to kind of analyze data, massive amount of data, predict what's going to be the outcome, etc., right? So I think that is critically important. Crypto blockchains is an area that, like I said, I don't honestly fully comprehend as of today. So I would like to reserve my comments around that for now.
So, most of the people, when I talk, even if they ask me what about crypto, I just say that I don't understand anything about it. So it's better, I keep my mouth shut on that, because I don't understand how that value is actually increasing or decreasing, or what was the reason behind it. One tweet cannot be the reason for a stock or a company moving up and down. So
Right.
That's the thing.
There's something called DeFi, okay, which is something that that will happen though. I mean, it's not exactly blockchain or crypto, but decentralized finance, right? It's a very interesting topic. Even central banks across the world, including in India, are looking at it. So that's an area that maybe people should spend a little bit time figuring out, because that might take place, decentralized finance without an RBI, for example, being involved in everything as an intermediary.
Okay. I'll ask a final question and then we'll wrap this up. That let's say I'm a student of first year, and I'm just starting out my career. Now, what are the things that you would say can be the do's and the don'ts for me for next 3 years that perhaps I should keep in mind while navigating my career? And how should I look forward to the opportunities? Because one of the problem which I often see with the students, that they're also not able to find the right opportunities for them. So as you know, in the beginning of the session, Amit also mentioned, internships become a very important part of the whole process. And at GCEC, we have made it mandatory for students to do a internship from 1 to 6. So after college ends, they have to go and do internships, so that by the time the college ends, they have a good amount of work experience, right? So I would just like to know your points, and can you guide us, what they should keep in mind while starting up their career? Because now a lot of them have just entered the first year of the college. How they can keep things in mind, what they should do right at the beginning itself, so as to have a holistic career, and what are the areas they can go into to build some good relevant career experience in finance. So we can start with Abhinav, and then we'll come to you.
No, I think the answers to the questions to this question we have covered during the conversation, Nikhil, in parts and bits. So as Amit also rightly mentioned out, you just have to have first the clarity of what in which space in finance or finance itself, if you need to land up there. Now, this clarity won't come right away. You have to do a lot of research that what a job in investment banking would entail, what a job in private equity or a wealth management industry would look like. And there are just like the two methods to that. Either you connect with people who are in that in that industry and like understand from them that how the industry is right now, how it's going to evolve, and what should you do, or you just go and research yourself. Now once, and this is I think might be the most difficult step. Now if just like after you have cleared that step, if you are clear that what you have to do in your career, for example maybe a career in private equity or VC, then going far on the second step is slightly easier. You just have to list down the specific skills you'll need to land a job in that career, or just like if not a job, if you have to do something on your own in that particular industry, what specific skills, network capabilities, and or team you might have built up, or what organizations you might have to reach out. And then you start thinking and acquiring those skills in a way. Now it's in India, it might happen that it's not necessary that the industry you want to follow, you want to land up in, you'll always land up in that industry. It's just like that how the opportunity might come at a certain point of time. You have to just grab that and move on in future. But that's what I'll say. First make the first step would be just to get clear what we want to do, in what financial space you want to land up in. Second, list down the skills you want to acquire to be like the leading or maybe a strong professional in that particular career. And once you are joining, like once you have acquired a role in that particular financial space, my first 3 years, my main point was that I don't restrict myself to anything. That if I'm in a private equity role, I'll just be very restrictive. I restrict myself to investment knowledge. I have to read a lot of things, what's going in the country, the economic knowledge, maybe what's going in politics, or just expand your width.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. So in microcredit, I was doing the KYC of my clients also. I was asking for Aadhaar cards and PAN cards. So I was talking with RBI also, gaining regulatory knowledge. I was also gaining communication skills. So it's the first 3 years of your career would be the most important ones, and how you would shape yourself. So I would just say that in first 3 years, don't look at the work hours you are spending in your organization. Don't restrict yourself to a particular domain that, okay, I was hired for this role, I have to do it, my job in this role only. Just accept whatever comes in your way, and just talk to a lot of people as like as much as possible.
That's very
what
good.
I did. Yeah.
That's a very good point, because we generally have to have a habit of categorizing ourselves into certain roles and just restricting ourselves, which perhaps might not be healthy in a long-term, game which is there. And careers are not, 3, 4, 5 years. They are 10, 20, 30 years. So I think that's a very important point that don't restrict yourself to anything. Try to expand as much as possible your breadth of knowledge as much as possible, and that is going to help you in some way or the other.
Yeah, just to give an example, suppose in my fund, you have to get of course the investment knowledge of those sectors, but
Mhm.
keep on researching on new sectors because in future your mindset might change. You find a sector more relevant. Then have to honor like you have to get a legal knowledge that how to close, how to negotiate for your rights, but among different shareholders or with the company. So you have to get a legal knowledge, regulatory knowledge, investment knowledge. It's yeah, whatever you can grab on, I would say.
And in fact, negotiation becomes a very important part when it comes to private equity deals that you should, maybe you can elaborate on that a bit more if you can, maybe quote with an example perhaps, so as for the students to know कि actually private equity में होता क्या है.
Of course, so in after if you are very closing, if you have like completed your due diligence, and now that's the stage that you have to negotiate what rights as a shareholder you are going to demand from the management. That's where or to the investors which is already invested in the company. That's where the real negotiation starts.
Right.
So you might have to demand a lot of rights that you want a board seat on the company, or say you want a priority exit or a liquidation preference over the other investors. That when the exit happens, you would be the first one given a preference over the other investors. Now, this requires a lot of communication negotiation skills because you have to have a very structured thought and strong points to back your argument, because these are the professionals who are coming from Harvard, Oxford, everywhere like in the world, and they
Yeah.
would be very up in their communication and negotiation game. So you cannot just sit in your seat, like demand something, and you are not able to back that from through logical points or an argument.
True.
You would lose your face also. So that's the one instance. And of course, like after you have invested, then there's constant path of fights and negotiation with the management, which suppose which product you should go with the market, or new product you should go, or maybe there's a fight on ESOPs. Even management want ESOPs, you don't want to give them because you think that management haven't performed them like as expectations. So
Right.
negotiation is at, yeah, I would say, at every point of time in a private equity role.
Okay. Makes sense. Same question to you, Amit. Like, what sort of advice would you give, and how can students navigate their career? Then we'll take one question from one of the students.
Sure. I'll reiterate what I've said in the beginning, and also aligned to what Avinav said just now. So again, I'll break this answer into two parts. So in terms of pure skills, right? I think we Indians are very good in pursuing programs, degrees, certifications, and passing the exams, right?
Yeah.
But a couple of things which I find missing, and in a lot of people, not all, is application skills and soft skills, right? So I think when you look at the type of skills one has at a very high level, I think technical skills are important, and that's are taken for granted. If you've done a degree from XYZ college, you've done a certification from CFA Institute, etc., your technical knowledge is taken for granted, right? Application of that theoretical knowledge becomes very important. So whatever we are learning, that needs to be applied to solving real world problems. Okay. So for example, when it comes to financial statements, it's not enough to know how the P&L balance sheet cash flow items work. But if somebody is given a bunch of financial statements of a company, can you analyze that financial statements and make some sense out of it, right?
Right.
That's kind of important, the application. The third one is soft skills. Okay. It's if one has lots of knowledge sitting inside the head, but if one is not able to express that knowledge, not able to articulate, not able to present, not able to write, okay, it's almost meaningless. Okay, because how would the other person know? How would the Nikhil know what you know, right? How would Avinav know about the capability if it's not presented in the right format, right? So technical skills, application of those technical skills, and soft skills, all three are equally important. In fact, a lot of people believe, including me, that the softer skills are the most difficult skills to acquire. It takes the longest time to acquire. Technical skills can be acquired in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, right? Not soft skills. Okay. So look at all of these three skills holistically from as early as possible, even from school, first year of college, etc. Right? Once you come to college, again reiterating, talk to as many people as possible, network it as many, because that's the best time to talk to people, because you're not looking for a job, you're just in the college first year, job is 3 years away, I don't have to worry about it right away. So talk to people, build connections, build networks, right, of trust. And once you have built it over a period of 2-3 years, when it comes to looking for a job, it becomes so much easier, right? It also helps in kind of understanding the different aspects of the industry much better, trying to figure out what you know, what you like, what's of interest to you, etc. And then repeating what Avinav said, it will help identify the skills that are required for the specific job that I'm looking for, the job that I'm interested in, right? Okay, so that's the next step. Do internships, again, repeating what I said before, as many internships as possible, in different kind of role, not just in the same role, okay? So that gives you a very practical perspective about what each job requires and all, right? Do all of these certification programs, because that enhances your credibility. Coming back to that MBA versus CFA thing, I look at it as complementary. Even if you're doing undergrad degree, right, and you've done CFA level 1 or level 2, it complements it. It enhances your credibility. So do all of these things, right? I think if you do all of these things, right, focus on soft skills, application skills, technical skills, build a nice strong network, focus on figuring out the skill set required for different roles, doing internships to validate those skills, doing certifications to complement your degree, right? I think the world is at your feet. Anything is possible. Anything is possible.
True. One student has a question, and perhaps both of you will be able to help him in this, that most of the big firms are recruiting from tier 1 colleges and the top colleges. So if someone is pursuing a professional course from, let's say, a tier 2 or tier 3 college, what are things that he should keep in mind, and how he can or she can crack a role into IB and PE space if he wants to go into that? So maybe we covered it in bits and pieces. Maybe you can give a formal answer to this. So maybe any of you can start.
Yeah, Amit, if you want to go first, or yeah. So I'll just share my example. I've done MBA from IMT Ghaziabad. It's also a tier 2 college. I was placed in Society General in Bangalore with a back-end role. Now I was also struggling with the fact that most of the top tier funds have a criteria of IMA, BC, ISB Hyderabad, and how can I crack myself into a role of it? So if you're not from a top tier A institute, you might have to struggle a bit to crack into this role. But what I found was that there were a lot of mid-tier investment banks, small investment banks, and mid-tier private equity funds, which doesn't have that criteria at all. They just try to test how good are you in your communication skills, how confident are you in what you have learned, and what technical skills do you have right now. So you might have to start your career with a very maybe a smaller mid-tier boutique investment firm or a private equity fund. But if you progress over your career, your those initial entry barriers of a top tier A institute or those fade away as you progress in your career. So your path might be slightly longer compared to a top tier A candidate, but of course the destination might be the same if you work hard. But of course there little bit of struggle would slightly more than compared to a tier A or tier B institute.
That makes sense.
So Avinav, what Avinav said, I cannot reiterate enough. Okay, it's about the relevance of the job that you're signing up for. Okay, there's this young guy from one of the tier 2 IIMs that I was talking about, who was very keen on building a career in investment banking, right? And he's done his internship in a boutique investment banking firm as well, right? And he said, how do I crack into these top tier firms? I'm not getting a job. I said, I think what you're doing is great, because if it doesn't happen in one step, it might happen in 3 steps. But so long as you're doing something which is leading you in the direction, you're learning skills and gaining experience which is relevant for an investment banking role, that is critically important, right? And he had an offer from the same boutique investment bank to go back, But then eventually he ended up signing for one of the top IT companies, right? And I asked him why. And it's like, well, the salary they were paying was higher, slightly higher, 50,000 rupees per month higher, right? Now, that is very short-sightedness. Okay. So on one hand, like, you want to build a career in investment banking, but on the other hand, like, you're prioritizing a slightly higher salary in the starting of a career, right? That's not good enough, right? I think that's what Abhinav is talking about, is like, make sure that you work in a relevant industry, which is aligned to your career interests. Okay, salary might be lower at the beginning of it, but eventually, like, because this is what you want to be, you'll eventually break in there and it will all make up, right? So that's one part of it, right? The second part, which is a direct answer to the question about not being part of the top tier colleges. I feel like any qualification degree from a top tier college, any CFA, etc., all it does is get you to the interview table, okay, not land you the job, right? Now, if you are from an IIM Ahmedabad, it's much easier to land that interview, okay, versus like a tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 college, which is much harder. Is it impossible? No. Okay. So if a company doesn't come to your campus to recruit from, because they probably prioritize like not the top tier colleges, okay, like you have to reach out on your own, which is where all of this networking that I was talking about, like you start from year one, that's when it comes in helpful, okay, because more often than not, more likely than not, you will know someone at some of these firms, like and then if you build that relationship over 3 years, 4 years, where you are adding value to his or her life, not asking stuff, right? You have built a connection, okay, then you'll get to the interview table, and once you get to the interview, that's all it takes. Then that's a matter of your abilities and capabilities, right? So it's not unknown of for a large bulge bracket investment bank, private equity firm to also hire from like the lesser known schools, as I call it, right? Not the traditional way of going to campus, but offline. Okay, so it is difficult, not impossible. You have to put in a lot of extra hard work for it.
That's perfectly answered. So I think we should wrap it up. So thank you, Abhinav, and thank you, Amit, for giving out time and sharing your ideas and thoughts with us. So I think students shall learn a lot from it. So thank you for coming, and have a good day ahead. So thank you.
All right. All the best, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Nikhil.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day. Bye.